My name is Kyle Davis, and this is the last week for my level design project that I'm doing for Action Hank. This level was the final level in the 7-level series that I was doing, and this one is the culmination of most of the skills the player needs that they learned throughout the previous 5 plus, or the previous 4 plus the 2 advanced levels that they played through before. That should help them get through this, as this level requires a little bit more finesse because not everything is exactly lined up and needs the player's skill to know how to throttle their speed so they can get the fastest time, which means not always holding forward. So as we see, we go through a really long stretch here where they have to do long jumps, which then, depending on how they do their long jumps, then can have big consequences when they get to their first actual slide, because they either can miss this completely or bonk at the edge and lose a lot of speed depending on where they go to be able to slide down here to get up to this next area. It's forgiving, but then we try to put in a little bit of red herrings here by having these like slopes go up in directions of where the player would want to go. So they'd see this and they'd be like, oh, I want to go up and over, and not realize until they get to the very edge that they need to wall jump to get to the next area, which we then try to use to our advantage by adding in little stop gaps right underneath the area, because there's a little brick right here that goes along with that, and then one over here. And then these help kind of box the player in. Along with this, you can't jump out of this area. The only way to die is to fall out of this area here and get out. So we didn't put a checkpoint until over here, but you don't need it until here. This is the first actual part where they're going to have a problem. And that is how we've set this up. We've set this up so that it's the normal slide down wall jump to get over to this area, but we've set it up in a way where there's some obstacles here. And this promotes the player to have to get through this with minimal effort, which is actually very hard because usually once you get to about here, when you jump to go to this side, you're already waggling, which you don't want to do on this area because that'll gain you height, which means you just pop back up over top of this and get slowed. Same thing with over here when you're trying to transition. So it's just one of those things where we try to throttle the player and make them have to use more of their arsenal than they're used to. Then once they get over into this area, we've set it up so that there's the chance that they might want to use this wall jump instead of this wall jump, which then also wastes them time, as this is just a little loop to give them a red herring, and then this is the actual one to go through. Along with this, we start going into an area where we want them to lose some speed so that they can get ready for this next area, and that's why we set up this checkpoint here. So this next area is clearable. And then we go into a butt slide that goes into another one of our rings. But this one you have to perpetuate the slide across a long straight, and then use a perfect jump to get over it to be able to line this up, which you're not going to really know where you're exactly going until you get about halfway through, and by that point you have to start throttling your jump to where you're going to hit, which means you have a chance of dropping before or way after and landing somewhere about here. And getting this perfectly is really hard, but as long as you get somewhere about here and start a slide, you'll be able to get up this no problem. But it goes back into our half pipe mechanic that we've been using overall. Then we go into our jack-in-the-box style, where you have to do nothing, as these will instantly vault you up. And then we go into another one of these skip areas, and we've set it up so that it's possible from a dead stop when you restart, and also when you're careening from before. So this is interesting, as once you get past the second jump here, you have to alternate between slowing down and speeding up as you go to be able to get to the next part. And then right off here, we have them make a leap of faith that they'll just be able to see the edge here to then be able to make it to the end. So this is something that is far more advanced than what the player has been used to, and we try to make it as friendly as possible, but also have a lot of iterations as possible. Because I want this to be a level where the more you play it, the faster you get. And there's a lot of time-saving options within it. So let's get through this, and then I'll show you a highlight reel of all the levels played in sequence, and then we're basically done. This area is just the normal. You want to start doing your slide early. When you get over to this area, you end up doing your jump. See, this happens a lot if you don't have the right amount of speed. So that's something that we want to keep the player engaged with, is making sure that they have enough speed to get over it, because this is something where you can easily mess up a lot of times. And this area sets up quite an interesting precedent for trying to get around, because you get stuck on a lot of those blocks if you don't jump perfectly. Then we get into our slide, which you can see in the distance, and you have to try to guesstimate where to go. Because, see, I was trying to throttle exactly where I need to be, but if I just go, I'm just going to hit into the edge of it, and I'm not going to be able to get up. So I end up losing a lot of time there, because then I have to do my half pipe again, showing off our jump to get up here, which then we go into our big skip jump that we end up having the player to do, and we have to have them really throttle where they're going, and it's all about preserving speed, which is a hard thing to get a player in this game to break the habit of constantly pressing forward just because it's something that they're instinctively wanting to do. So, that's how we end up getting that to work. And along with this is not the hardest, but I felt it was the hardest for advanced players. That's the reason why this one was last, was because of having these skip areas that aren't completely consistent, and having some areas where it's more guesswork than it is accuracy, because it's always 100% going to send you there if you do this perfectly, or work off 2 sets of speed. I didn't want to do that with this one. I wanted to make it a little bit more organic for the player to try to understand what's going on, and that ended up being the best way to do it. So that's the final level here, and now I'm just going to go through and play every level in succession to show you how they ramp up.